So it was a joyful ceremony on Sunday for new old bodhisattvas. It's just so sweet when you say, "I'm a bodhisattva." I mean, we know you are, but there's also something very beautiful when someone just says, "Yep, this is my life." I know when I took priest vows, the experience was I felt like I was turned inside out, which was a little uncomfortable. It was like what had always been inside was now on the outside, and everybody could see it, which meant, I suppose, on some ways that I had to be accountable. It's like you could see me. I spent a lot of my life hiding. And also the joy of finally, this is who I am. This is my life. This is my heart. So we go on with our koans. We're in the practice period, joyfully. Tonight, after we're studying, the precept study goes on. Everybody's invited. And the koan that I picked for tonight, or picked me, because that's sort of how this is happening. I'm not thinking about which one should we do. It's like one just says, "Hey, it's me this week." And I go, "Okay." So the one that picked me and picked us this week is actually quite a wonderful one to follow up the ceremony and to lead us into precept study tonight for those who come. Some of the commentary I'm going to offer is from Norman Fisher. Some is from Catherine Thanis, and I love that in Catherine Thanis's commentary, I'm doing this as a teaser, is I'm going to tell you a little bit of it, but the second part of it is all about the precepts. So I thought, wow, whoever picked this one was good picking. Okay, so this is in the Blue Cliff Records, the second case, and titled "Just Avoid Picking and Choosing." Just avoid picking and choosing. We got it, right? Okay, so here's some commentary. This story is based on a famous Zen poem by Sengan Shito called the Shin Shin Ming, Faith in Mind. Faith in mind. Faith. And the opening lines of the poem read, "The true way for the intimate way to live this path is not difficult. Just avoid picking and choosing." It's kind of nice to know that the ancestors had some kind of sense of humor. Maybe they didn't know they were funny, but I think they're funny when they get passed to me. When you don't grasp or reject, the way enlightens itself. When you don't grasp or reject, the way enlightens itself. So we might say this is pointing at the heart of Buddhist teachings. All conditioned existence is suffering. And what's the cause of suffering? Grasping and wanting and rejecting and pushing. Someone told me that even if you look through a microscope, you can see on a little cellular level, they're doing the same thing. They're moving towards things. They're pushing things away. We're hardwired. We think something's outside of ourselves. There's something to get. There's something to reject. There's some solution. There's something to fix. We think if we do a lot of hard work, maybe we'll get it. We can go beyond all this. If you train hard enough, well, that's usually what 20-year-old monks do. It's like, "I'm going to do this. I'm going to sit really, really, really hard." We should sit hard, but with an open heart and mind, because in the end, we find out there's no place to get to. That's the irony and the sort of beautiful sense of humor, the sadness and the beauty of all of this. Of course, we practice. We need to practice. We know uh, we could use a little improvement. If you pay attention even a little bit, you know that without even meaning to, we cause harm. But if we really study our hearts and minds, and that's what we're able to do in Zazen, really study this self, is you just realize how subtle it is and how constant it is. This moving towards and this moving away, pushing, wanting, grasping, aversion. On the most fundamental level, we want to live and we don't want to die, right? I remember Richard Baker, my first teacher, said to me, not well, it wasn't to me. It felt like it was to me because it stayed with me all these years, but he said it to probably a room with 100 people in it, is everybody's nice till they're pushed into a corner. It's like I'm open, I'm compassionate, I'm kind, but you push just the right place. Or suddenly maybe a fire happens, or suddenly war happens. Is we just don't know. We just have no idea what's going to happen. So basic humanity. We're human beings. How do we practice? How do we wake up? What is freedom right in the midst of this body and heart and mind that wants to live and doesn't want to die, and fundamentally really wants to be comfortable and wants what it wants and doesn't want what it doesn't want? So the fact of it, the irony of it is that the minute you name anything, you've already separated things out. Any discrimination, any act of hearing or seeing, it depends on this and that. Birdsong is over there, unless birdsong just penetrates right through your body and heart and you don't know where you begin and where it ends. And we do have those experiences. And we often have them in Zazen and in longer retreats. Or a long hike. Suddenly the world opens. Or you walk outside the door, like those of us, some of us stayed to clean up after the ceremony, and we looked up in the night sky and there was a sliver of a moon with Venus. It's like, oh, the whole world stops and gets vast, and it's like, what is this? And it's so far beyond grasping and aversion. And we also know that the way we fundamentally experience, the way we human beings, and the reason why the news looks the way the news looks is because we divide things and then we set one thing up against the other, and we pick and we choose all the time. The beauty of the Heart Sutra and the emptiness teachings in Buddhism says, like, what a bodhisattva really knows. You can't really know kindness and compassion and freedom and love unless you also simultaneously know emptiness or boundlessness or porousness. We are projecting the world out there, but when we take the backward step, where does one thing begin and another end? That's Sagan's trust in mind. Entrusting ourselves to something bigger Norman Fisher described it recently as, well, and Suzuki Roshi does too. There's a foreground and a background, which of course isn't the truth of it. There's no foreground and background. But our life is it's projection. Suzuki Roshi, I think, calls it like a film that's projected on a wide open white sheet of emptiness. So we learn to hold both, to both not separate ourselves from the world, meaning we don't stop caring and trying to do something to help, but we also have this deeper felt sense, because it is a felt sense, an embodied sense, that there is something going on that is ungraspable and is unknowable. And you can call it mystery or wonder or love. We are coursing in both. And then we more and more know that peace and love and wisdom is right here. It's right here. And so we practice and trust ourselves to Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha, or some kind of deep faith practice that's not faith in something other than just, there's more than just me and you, and there is me and you. So, how do we embody this? Finally get to the Blue Cliff Records. And Zhao Zhou is one of the favorites. Suzuki Roshi loves Zhao Zhou. Here's the Blue Cliff Records. Zhao Zhou said, quoting the poem from Faith in Mind, "The true way is not difficult. Just avoid picking and choosing. And enlightenment and abiding within clarity appears." And then he says, "As soon as there are words, there is picking and choosing, or there is enlightenment and clarity. But I don't abide in this enlightenment and clarity. So what should we do?" And the monastic says, because it's always a dialogue, almost always between two people, since you don't abide in this enlightenment, we could say, since you don't abide in this awakening, since you don't abide in this freedom, what do you do? How do you live? And you know what Zhao Zhou says? It's why he's the favorite. He says, "I don't know either." And the monastic says, since you don't know, how can you say that you don't abide in this enlightenment? And Zhao Zhou says, it's enough to ask the question. See for yourself. Just bow and go away. Go live your life and find out what this means. Live it. Stop asking these dumb questions. But please, it's really important to ask these questions. So you can't go wrong, really. So enlightenment, clarity, freedom is not the goal of our practice. It is not what we are aiming for. It's just one more idea, is finally, if I finally get this together, I will be a peaceful, kind person, and everybody's going to love me, and I'm going to stop making mistakes, and maybe I'll be able to save the world. And oh my goodness. I mean, we all have our own little stories about it, but we do this. So the sad thing is, it's not about getting out of this life. Just ordinary mind, just everyday mind. I don't want to abide in some idea of a solid state of bliss or quiet, but I also don't want to be blown around by the world. So he keeps asking the question all the time. Now what do we do? I don't know. What do we do? What is this moment? How do we live it without being caught in either worldly grasping or rejection on the one hand, or thinking that there's something outside that's going to be more peaceful or better? Just accept and enter this moment of our lives as it really is. He really doesn't know how. He really doesn't have a plan or a program. He just is a human being. Just this. Just bowing. Just wide open, questioning, curious mind of wonder. What is it? Nothing special. Keep coming back to that. It's just this. And the ceremony on Sunday was wonderful, and it was really special. And just 4 very ordinary human beings just saying, yes, I will. That's all. Moment after moment, yes, I will. With kindness and gentleness and commitment, saying it out of their own suffering and their own aspirations, and saying it with and for all of us. Buddha nature is every moment. It's not a special moment. It's not that it's here and not there. Life is just like that. Do we allow it in, or do we close ourselves off from it? That's from Norman Fisher. Every choice I make, you make, the precepts, will be both right and wrong. And everything I turn towards with deep heart is completely perfect. Everything is perfect just as it is. You are perfect just as it is, and it could use a little improvement. The more you study these koans, the more you realize how beautiful it is, because it gives you one thing and then it gives you the other, and then it flips it. And the minute you think you begin to get a toehold, it feels to me like somersaulting in time and space. And of course, we get frustrated and we get sad and we get angry. And why don't you just why can't I just pin this down? But there's also in time, I mean, in my experience, because I didn't used to laugh at all. I was mostly pretty angry, but very quiet about it. There is some kind of beautiful sense of humor in it that has a really deep kindness. It's like, oh my goodness, oh my goodness. I think maybe you've heard me say, I think if there are gods, that they must just sit up there. I mean, this is just my little imagination. And part of the time they're crying, they just can't believe, oh my goodness, they did it again. Oh my goodness, look what they're doing. And the other part is just this really kind-hearted laughter. They just can't believe how stubborn we all are. And just this sense of just love is they're doing it again. It's just so here's a commentary from the koan. Zhao Zhou. I like this one. It was all because she never had so many calculating judgments. She could pick up sideways and use upside down, go against or go with, without having attained great freedom. Let me say that again. It was all because she never had so many calculating judgments. Watch your calculating judgments. She could pick up sideways and use upside down, go against and go for, having attained great freedom. I, for whatever reason, was having the feeling when I read that it's like a fly. You could walk on the wall or the ceiling or the floor. You can fly around. So maybe a fly is completely free. Suzuki Roshi liked flies. If you look in Zen Mind Beginner's Mind, it was frogs and flies. I never got that before. So there you go. Let's be as free as a fly. Okay, here's from Catherine Thanos's commentary. Catherine Thanos, some of you know, when some of us went down to Tassajara a couple of years ago, we studied her book, which I can't remember the name of it right now. But Catherine Thanos, when I was in my 20s, I hitchhiked across the country from Ohio and went to Green Gulch Farm as a guest student. And Catherine, I don't know if she was the Eno I think she must have been the Eno or the Tonto, but she really took me under her arm, under her wings, and was really kind to me. And when I had to go home to Ohio, she gave me a zafu to take home with me. So I always feel, I just keep wanting to tell that story because I'm here because of 100 million causes and conditions, but I'm here because of Catherine. I'm so grateful. So here's a talk from 2002. She's no longer alive. It's called The Oneness of Two. When we look at the surface of our lives, we make judgments, such as I'm a failure or I'm pretty good. That was a great period of Zazen or a terrible period. Although such views often alternate with each other, they can obscure the deeper truth that the alternation is the reality. Although such views often alternate with each other, they can obscure the deeper truth that the alternation, the flashing, the shimmering is the reality, and that failure can lead to a deep healing, and success to suffering, or a negative experience to an opening of wholeness in our lives. Our discriminating minds surf ordinary consciousness in familiar patterns. To journey below the surface usually requires something unusual, a traumatic event. Sometimes this happens spontaneously, and sometimes it happens through intention, through the will to face the circulating mind until deeper layers are reached. I was just thinking about Black Lives Matter. Because the trauma's always been there, but when it erupted on the streets, it's like you can't turn away anymore. You have to look deeper and deeper and deeper and deeper. The imperative of dropping from the surface to the center arises when life brings us a situation we cannot resolve with our ordinary mind. How do we resolve this pain, this ancient twisted karma of our own lives and our society and our structures and war? And we can call this situation a koan, something which appears as a paradox. A koan may also be a traditional case from the historical Buddhist record, as we've been studying. Resolution of a koan can give us a direct experience of the oneness of life, which means stay in the center of it. Stay in the center of the suffering and the joy and the shimmering and the don't know. Just keep coming back. The Blue Cliff Record, case number 2, the ultimate path is without difficulty. Only avoid picking and choosing, is a traditional koan which we studied recently to explore the basis of our decision making. In order to, listen to this because you can take this forward with you this week. In order to experience not picking and choosing, each student selected a situation in his or her life and took on the practice of being choiceless in that situation for 1 week in order to experience freedom from choice, the very point the koan is addressing. Darlene Cohen, I remember being told that one of her practices is that she would go out when she would go out to dinner. And she'd open the menu and she'd just go bump, and she'd order wherever her hand landed. That's a beautiful practice. I'm way too attached to what I want when I go out to dinner. But you could pick something else, or you could pick anyway. It gives you an idea. The choiceless practice requires that we actually limit ourselves to not choosing in a particular situation something that we had chosen for ourselves, which you could do this week, and it can reveal the wholeness of our body and mind, of inside and outside, good and bad, how attached we are to what's on the menu. It's really humbling. I remember being at San Francisco Zen Center when the whole scandal happened during the 70s, I guess it was. And we all decided that maybe we needed to do a little more noticing and waking up, because there were things happening that many of us had chosen not to see. It happened in a lot of communities. And I remember someone suggested the practice that what you could do is just notice when you walk through a doorway. You'd think, well, of course I know how to walk through a doorway and when I'm walking through a doorway. It's not so easy. You pick up anything to bring your attention and awareness to, and it's going to bring up the whole world. So pick one small thing this week. Maybe when we go into small groups, you could commit. Just choiceless. Like Darlene, just point at the menu and whatever comes. When we suspend picking and choosing, things can be seen as the multiple aspects of one reality. We are picking and choosing all the time. There is no way to avoid picking and choosing. Maybe you could do some conscious awareness about the use of your phone, oy, 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 or the news. 100 small ways to make yourself uncomfortable, to free yourself. Just avoid picking and choosing. Trust that in a bit bigger, deeper mind, that if you let go, what you need really will come forward to meet you. So, small groups. Here's a couple questions besides what you might put down around picking and choosing.